Alrighty, so today we're going to talk about Austin FC in the season preview. So obviously, last season Austin made it to the playoffs for their second time in franchise history, but it was pretty obvious that they weren't going to make very far in the playoffs, especially when they ran into LAFC, which last year many thought was one of the favorites to contend for MLS Cup. You knew it was probably going to be a first round exit, and indeed that is the case. And the biggest problem, of course, for Austin last year was pretty obvious. They simply can't score. I mean, last season, this was the lowest goal scoring team in the league. It has the worst attack in the league. So it was pretty obvious what they did this offseason to hope to address that big issue. And that, of course, is they definitely bring in a couple big names on this team to hopefully fix the attack. Now, last season, they finished with a 13-8-13 record and finished with 47 points, but they were eliminated by LAFC in the first round. In fact, LAFC is the only team to eliminate Austin FC in those two times that Austin made it to the playoffs. So that's kind of an interesting fact to know. But last five season, as I said, they finished with 13-8-13 record, finished with 47 points, but were eliminated by LAFC in the first round. In 2024, they finished 11-9-14 and finished with 42 points, did not make it to the playoffs. In 2023, it was a little bit worse, 10-9-15 and finished with 39 points and did not make it to the playoffs. By the way, when they didn't make the playoffs in 2024, that was kind of the year when they realized that, yeah, it's time to pull the plug in terms of Josh Wolf being the head coach of this team. It was clearly not working, and that's why they made the change with Nico Estevez being in charge of this team. In 2022, they finished with a 16-8-10 record and finished with 56 points, by far the most successful season that Austin has had. But they were once again eliminated by LAFC, this time in the Western Conference Final. And then in their expansion season, they kind of suffer something similar to what we see with expansion team does. And I know I say that even though we just saw what happened last year with San Diego finishing first in the West, when we look at these last two expansion team finishing first in the Western Conference, that is still an anomaly. I mean, we usually do not see expansion team do well straight out off the gate, and I always said for every good expansion site like Atlanta, LAFC, Nashville, or even St. Louis and San Diego, you're gonna have some expansion team that have season like FC Cincinnati and even to some extent Charlotte as well. And yeah, this team did not make it to the playoffs in their first year. 9-4-21 and finished with 31 points. Their last playoff appearance was just last year, and they're still searching for their first ever MLS Cup. But this is only their sixth season in the league. That is. Now, looking at some of the transfer that they made, again, they definitely booster the attack. They have to. I mean, this was the thing that they need to fix heading into this season if they want to continue to be competitive. So they decided to bring in former Orlando City starlet Facundo Torres back into this league. This is definitely a move I definitely didn't see coming, especially with the way that him going to Palmeiras. I thought that was a way for him to not only continue to develop his career, but maybe make a big move to Europe after Orlando City sold him for a huge amount of money. I didn't think he was going to come back to MLS relatively soon, but hey, Austin, of course, decided to offer that deal. He's now with the Verde Black. They also got Joseph Rosales from Minnesota, and then they of course got Jaden Nelson from the Vancouver Whitecaps. A move that I'm very surprised that the Vancouver Whitecaps decided not to hold on to Jaden Nelson. I mean, I know he at near the end of the season wasn't a regular starter, but he is just such an electric player, and that will really help this Austin team, which is something that last year, yes, they do have some electric player itself, and I know some people will say feels like it's the Hodder O'Brien or even the Usami Bukari kind of replacement, but none of those guys just as electric as what Jalen Nelson does. I mean, when he is on, he is definitely a guy that put tears or put fears in defense, especially with the flair that he's shown, and we'll see whether or not he can do that for Austin FC. And then they also got some depth at the back in John Bell as well. But looking at players that's no longer this team, Usman Bakari, of course, he mentioned that he wants to go back to Europe, and he's now joining a team in Poland. Stefan Cleveland going to Sporting KC. Hodder O'Brien, of course, getting that buyout that they had a couple of days ago of buying out his contract. Diego Rubio, of course, going back to his native country in Chile. Julio Cascante, one of the last remaining original no member of this Austin FC team for the inaugural season, no longer on this team, and they also let go of Jimmy Farrakhan as well. Now, look at the first 5 games of the season. They start the season against Minnesota at home, which is kind of a very familiar season opener because that was the season opener in 2024, and it was not a memorable season opener for Austin FC fans in 2024. Then they play DC United at home before going on the road to face against Charlotte. Then they play against RSL on the road before returning home in a rematch of the first round matchup that we saw last year in the playoffs against LAFC. Last 5 games, they got Vancouver at home on October 17th before going on the road to play against Sporting KC. Then they return home to play against RSL before going on the road to play against the LA Galaxy. And then they return home to play against the Portland Timbers. So it's kind of a mix of home away kind of stretch to finish the last 5 games of the season. And just like the first 5 games of the season, there are some easy opponents that they should be able to win, but there are also some tough opponents that they're going to be definitely up against it in terms of looking at their last 5 games and their first 5 games as well. Now, looking at the strength of this Austin FC side, it's definitely going to be the defense and the goalkeeping. I mean, one of the reasons why this team was good enough to make it to the playoffs was a large part is because of the fact that their defense was absolutely locked down. And I'm not surprised this is kind of the case because when Nico Estevez was hired from this team, especially with the way that he's kind of a little bit more of a pragmatic kind of head coach during his time with FC Dallas, you kind of realize the fact that this team was going to be much better on the defensive end. Now, obviously, the problem with them being a little bit more pragmatic, this is kind of where we saw the problem that they have on the attacking end. And this is also where, for Dallas fans that had Nico Estevez, I think they're probably warning Austin fans that, yeah, just because they made it to the playoffs last year, Nico Estevez has kind of become a little bit stubborn maybe at times and maybe keep that pragmatic approach. And even though with them kind of improving the attack, who knows if that's going to be the case with the tactics that he used. But there's no doubt that, as I said, going back to what I said, the defense is definitely very good. They don't have some studded kind of players on that back line, but they definitely have done the job, and especially the tactics that Nico Estevez has, being a more defensive minded kind of head coach. Kind of no surprise why their defense was much better, and also Brad Stuver probably had the best season last year in his time with Austin FC, and are looking to do it again heading into this season. So the weakness of this team, I want to say it's the attack, but really it's the lack of 10 and 9 on this team. Now, in terms of the 9, obviously, I don't know if Brandon Vasquez will be ready enough in the beginning of the regular season. I think it's going to take a while, maybe until the middle of the season before he is being put back into the fold, and even then, they're probably going to be slowly integrating him back in the starting 11. So that means that you're probably going to have Uzuni being there as the number 9. And last year I talked about this before with Uzuni. This was kind of the time that he needs to prove himself that he is the guy that will be that elite product that they brought him last off season. And while he definitely got a little bit better as the season goes along, yeah, it was still very underwhelming in terms of the numbers. Not worth the DP amount in terms of the numbers that he put up. And then, of course, the lack of 10 itself. This team don't really have that 10 player. I've been saying that, I feel like this team should maybe thinking about finding a replacement for Sebastian Driussi. I know some people will say that heading into this season, maybe that guy might be Facu Torres, because Facu Torres, even though he played in the winger position, he was kind of a playmaker for all Orlando City in that spot as well. And maybe that might be the 10 that they might have. But if they want to go with an actual 10 itself, yeah, that's something that they still haven't really found as a decent replacement for Sebastian Driussi. But again, that maybe could all change, like I said, with Faco Torres, which kind of bring us to the first big question of this team: is that will the new addition that they have will help what was last season worst goal scoring team in the entire league. I mean, they only scored like 39 goals last season, which is by far the worst in MLS. And again, with Facu Torres, he might be the guy that if he can show that ability that he shown with Orlando City and be that playmaker and goal scorer as well, then maybe they don't really need a true number 10 on this team. He might be the guy that might be carry the attack, but it's also worth noting that Facu Torres doing his time with Orlando City, he did have in his last season he did finish strong as well, but he also struggled in the beginning part of the season as well. So what that basically tells you that he was kind of a very streaky kind of player. And again, when you look at this new addition of the attack, even bringing Jaden Nelson and then bringing an attacking minded Rosales as well. You just wonder, well, it's great that they brought in some good names on this attack. It all goes back to what I said about Nico Estevez in terms of the tactics, and something that Dallas fans has been warning Austin fans all this time. The fact that he tends to be a very defensive minded, kind of a very pragmatic kind of head coach, and with that pragmatic kind of approach, would that still work even if you bring some good attacking talent? I mean, there's no use of bringing all these attacking talent when your head coach are setting up a team that tends to be more defensive minded and not really allow some of your attacking player to go forward with more freedom on the attack, and just maybe staying back, and almost at times maybe putting a shackle in terms of their ability to go on the attacking end. We've also seen this before where some MLS team, when they clearly know that they have the attacking talent, but the reason why it's not shown is because their head coach decided to use some tactics that is definitely doesn't allow to be more of an attacking kind of team, and allow these players to express themselves. A great example of that is St. Louis last year. We saw with Olaf Melberg. We know that the St. Louis team has some good attacking talent, but Olaf Melberg decided to go with a very defensive approach, and no wonder why they struggle when it comes to scoring goals, and it was no surprise that Dave Critchley, when he took over the team looked much better on the attacking end. I just worry that might be the same with Austin, where they have the right ideas in terms of the attack. They might not have the right head coach in terms of trying to get the best out of this attack. And then speaking of the attack, can Uzuni and Vasquez live up to their potential? And again, that all goes back to what I said about the fact that will they have more freedom on the attacking end. The interesting thing is that will both of these guys maybe be on the same pitch at the same time? I think last year they tried to do that, and it just wasn't really quite worked out. And this is also where you kind of also go back to this roster bill that Rodolfo Pizarro is trying to put. And that it just kind of feels weird in terms of how they built the attack last season. Bring two number nines on this team without bring a legitimate number 10 on this team. And it's like, well, you expect them to be the goal scoring threat of your team, but who is going to provide them the ball? I mean, I think that maybe plays part of why they really struggled last season. Now, part of that is also plays to the fact that both of those guys really underachieved when they did have the chance to put the ball into the back net. I mean, Vasquez and Uzun, both of those guys, they were definitely underperforming their XG a lot. Vasquez did kind of at least maybe found a little bit of form, but then that torn ACL kind of dimmer his hope. And then last but not least, if both Uzuni and Vasquez doesn't work out, you would expect maybe one of these guys might be brought out, and maybe they'll actually get a DP 10 in their team as well. And again, I said that even though maybe Facu Torres might be that number 10, even though he doesn't play in that spot, but I do think that ideally they would love to get a DP10 and an actual replacement for Sebastian Dreyusi, and with them already maxed out on their DP roster and already maxed out in terms of U22 initiative roster, wouldn't be surprised if there might be a buyout that we could see in the summer transfer window if some of their premium player does not perform the rate that they should be. Now, looking at the prediction of this team, the highs, I'm going to say fourth in the league. Obviously, there are some really good team in the Western Conference. I feel like Austin, when you look at this team, they're maybe just a tier below in terms of some of the better teams in the West. So the likes of San Diego, Vancouver, LAFC, and Seattle as well. I think they're probably a tier above what Austin is right now, but they can definitely still do well this season if their defense continue to be absolutely a defensive stalwart last season. And if the attack can get maybe something going, be a little bit better, then they can definitely finish near the top four. Now, if they can, they might finish in 11th place. And again, uh, Dallas fans have kind of warned Austin fans about the fact that it might get a little stale at times if Nico Estevez still stick with this defensive mindset. And if this is going to be another year where it's going to be like last season when they have problem in terms of goal scoring, that's when I would not be surprised if Nico Estevez might even be on the hot seat sooner than what we think it is. Remember, when he was hired by this team, it wasn't really a popular hiring. It was kind of a little bit underwhelming to replace Josh Wolf, and it feels like this team Right now, nobody likes to see a team that has problem when it comes to goal scoring. Nobody likes to see a very boring team. Last season, Austin was a very boring team to watch. I mean, if you're a neutral, Austin is probably the one team you just want to avoid watching because you know what's going to happen in their game. Most of their game is going to be very boring. There's not much goal scoring that is going to happen. I don't think Austin fans will tolerate another season where they might be the worst goal scoring team. Even though they were pretty good on the defensive end, they want to see this team to be more attacking minded. And at the end of the day, I mean, if you want to be in the next tier of MLS and really considers yourself to be a contender, you need to be much better on the attack end. You cannot be the worst goal scoring team for the second consecutive year and still consider yourself an MLS Cup contender heading into next season. But there you have it. That is pretty much it. Talk about Austin FC in the season preview. As always, let me know in the comments below what do you think of this video. And if you're a Los Verdes fan, what do you think is the strength, the weakness, free big question, and your prediction of how this team is going to look heading into this year. But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.